So which jobs, tasks do you believe AI will transform first and which will remain uniquely human for the longest time?
Nobody knows for sure, but technology tends to develop in a way of automating something that is most repetitive and easy to replicate. So a lot of coding is very repetitive. So that will go away, but it doesn't mean that you don't need people to supervise.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to Bold Conscious Connections. So this channel is dedicated to exploring the journeys of visionary leaders, entrepreneurs, who really dare to follow their dreams, their passions, and create really impactful businesses. So if you're looking to become an entrepreneur or otherwise seeking inspiration to elevate your career, well, you're in the right place, my friend. So on this channel, what I do is we delve into strategies, mindsets, stories behind the success of those that have done this before, like I have. I'm so delighted to welcome Yugen Omer, who's an AI expert, product designer, and entrepreneur specializing in developing AI-driven solutions. So I'm not going to bore you guys with his expertise. He went to Stanford and all this stuff, but there's a reason he's here. And I really want to have a great conversation about his passion, what drives him to do what he's done. He's got a couple of new businesses he's launched recently. And I met him through another friend. And this is Yugen Omer, and he's based in Tel Aviv. Yugen, welcome to the show.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me here.
Well, as I said, we'll talk about your expertise, but beyond what people know, who you are, et cetera, in the world, who is Yugen?
So actually, that's an interesting question because I don't really perceive myself as an entity. So Yugen is actually a word in Japanese that is referring to a feeling of that is awareness beyond words. And for me, awareness is something that is not individual. It's a global thing. So, and that's kind of what my branding, my self-branding, which is kind of ironic because it's a self-branding of no self, kind of. Yeah.
Do you see a contradiction there in the minds of people who are perhaps watching or
I
listening?
mean, I can definitely understand why it seems contradictory, but for me, it makes the most sense because I perceive the word I is, I'm using it because we are communicating and
Yes.
I have experience communicating, so I know how to use it properly. But in my head, I don't actually perceive it as a separate entity because I perceive consciousness as waves that I am a medium for them. So it's not like it's like they say this, whatever expression of, one man cannot cross the river twice because it's
Yes.
not the same man and it's not the same river.
Awesome. I mean, you and I have talked about this, so I know that we're here to connect for a reason. So,
Yeah.
But this was a question where for people, when you walk into a room, what do you want people to understand about you, if there's anything particular? So, in that sense,
I want them to understand that I am not interested in beating around the bush. I know what I'm here for. I know my goals. I know my tasks. And I'm not interested in excuses. I'm not interested in pleasantries. I'm not interested in politeness. All of these things. Like, if you want to say something, just say it. If you want to go away, just go away. Don't waste our time with political game of saving face and all that stuff.
We'll dig into this a little bit. You threw out a lot of things in there, Yugen, and I think this is interesting. But let's talk about the worldly stuff because so that people can at least figure out what this AI expert has to say. So, as an AI expert working with language models and whatever is going on around us right now, what do you see as the most exciting application emerging right now that most people do not yet appreciate?
Wow, that's a good one. I need to think about it for a moment because people do appreciate most of the things. So there is a lot of awareness about this field. For me personally, I guess the most exciting thing is code and image generation. So I use AI for all of that. So I use AI for coding and for images, and I build I use code generators to build apps. So that's something I wasn't able to do before then, because writing
Yeah.
a whole app by yourself is a lot of work, but the AI is just so fast with doing that. And
Mm.
the image is also like, I'm not a visual, like I don't know how to draw paintings, but I really like art. So for me, it's a
Mm.
big difference maker, being able to create art without the technical skills.
Right.
Yeah. But people do
But
appreciate it, right? So it's kind of like,
because you're so close to it, you think people appreciate it, but I'd say statistically, even businesses big and small, there's only about 3 to 5% adoption or penetration right now, even after 2 years of
yeah,
the AI being in people's hands, even though AI has been around for 50 years. But so you are so close to it, maybe you think people appreciate it. I have not encountered that.
yeah, yeah. So it's true, like very small amount of people actually appreciate it, but I am in those circles, so these are all
Sure.
the people that I meet. But
Of
yeah, it's
course.
true.
Of course. Yeah.
So you know what? Maybe one way to say it is there are so many applications of these tools that I mentioned, and also other tools like chatbots that are able to
Hmm.
communicate.
Sure.
So and CRM pipelines. So a lot of these things have so many applications that are relevant for any business whatsoever.
Mm.
And you're right that most like it's a gradual process and it's taking time to most businesses to catch up. So
Right.
that's kind of my goal, to be part of this process where businesses shift their technology integration to a
Mm.
higher level of AI
Right.
integration. Yeah.
So let's take it down a notch further. So if we worked in business automation with AI for a while, so which jobs, tasks do you believe AI will transform first, and which will remain uniquely human for the longest time or
Yeah.
forever?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like a lot of people are wondering about, and nobody knows for sure, but my approach says technology tends to develop in a way of automating something that is most repetitive and
Hmm.
easy to replicate. So a lot of coding is very repetitive. So that will go away, but it doesn't mean that you don't need people to supervise. So I'm guessing what will happen is a lot of jobs like coding, artists, and like support, customer support, content writing, a lot of these things that are very formulaic will
Yes.
kind of disappear
Perfect.
or go down, but they will be replaced by higher level jobs that you need to operate these AI models. So
So
humans
what's an
will,
example, let's say, of in your world that you worked on that where you see
yeah.
that?
So a good example is with image generation, where
Mm.
right now generating images with AI in very good quality is very, very cheap. So you don't need to hire artists to the same
Right.
extent, but you
Hmm.
still need someone who operates these things and chooses the best images. So
Hmm.
maybe
Sure.
instead of artists, we will have like an AI artist that knows how to pick the best models for
Right.
generating the most relevant images and how to use them. So it's a
Awesome.
different skill. It's a different skill.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that to me the other day, that much of your technical work is becoming automated by AI itself, as we just
Yeah.
said. How has this changed your daily work and what you focus on day to day?
Yeah. So for me, the biggest change professionally is that I used to spend hours and days and like forever just building models and testing
Mm.
them and data analysis and all of that machine learning stuff.
Mhm.
Now I just don't need to do it. So what I used to need months to build like a classifier. Let's say I need to build a classifier that's able to classify something as, something about the sentence, like whatever, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
sentiment analysis, for example.
Okay.
I
Right.
don't, now I do it in a few lines of code. So that's a pretty big difference. So
That's right.
now I find myself in a position where most of my tasks are I can build something that does them using AI in a matter of hours.
Uh-huh.
And now my goal is, instead of just building, like going deeper into one system and optimizing it, my goal is more to have to more parallelize and build multiple systems,
Mm.
because my bandwidth has increased by a factor of, yeah,
Yeah. Factor of what?
I don't know, 100. It's
Yeah.
like,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah. I mean, even in my work, it's just been crazy that, I was doing some math about it in 2023 and 24 after the chat GPT and other tools came out, and I think I saved over 1,000 hours last year and probably a little bit less the year before. It's insane, right? The amount of
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
it can take over for you.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's all in doing, and you can be running scared of it, or you could say, this is great. I adopt it and make my life, much easier, and open up more time for other things that have more meaning for you in life. So I'm going to talk about meaning in a minute, but I do have a rapid fire. I hope you're okay with that, because it'll be quick and dirty. Just so before we jump into the next sort of the level deep, could you just talk about your education and where you thought your expertise was going to be focused, and what you wanted to study, and what changed in life? What are some of the turning points for you thus
So my
far?
core motivation in life was to become a cognitive scientist, so to research our consciousness and understand how the mind works. And I wanted to become
At what age and when did you realize you wanted to do that?
When I was like 16 or 17, I decided, I want to be a cognitive scientist, a brain scientist. I studied
And you grew up in Tel Aviv?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And I started studying neuroscience since I was about 16, gradually building more and more. And then this turned into, actually what I want to do is not neuroscience. It's more about linguistic analysis. And that's when I started with linguistics in the goal of becoming a cognitive scientist eventually. That's what led me to my PhD program at Stanford. But somewhere along the way, I lost my naive concept of academia, right? So, and I realized that academia is more of a also is just like everything else. It's kind of like when you get into it, it becomes like political and very like a content machine. You just need to generate those research, even if it's a copy paste research. And I kind of lost my enthusiasm for it, or disillusioned. And that's when I realized that I need to find another path. And that's around the time when AI started to become much, much bigger. And I realized, okay, actually, this is a perfect match for my skills. I can apply my data science and language model skills to industry, to business. And that's when I started what I'm doing now.
So did you finish your PhD there at Stanford?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I finished it because I already started it, even though halfway through I was like, just let's get it over with, guys. I think half of the PhD, more than half of the PhD students have this kind of approach.
Yeah, of course. It's like fatigue, and then you're in this whole, anyway, research and all that.
Yeah,
but
it's not to say that it was horrible. Like I still think my research was interesting, but it's just I lost the original enthusiasm.
Right. So Yugen, beyond the technical aspects, how has working closely with AI, changed how you understand human thinking and consciousness now?
Oh wow, it's part of my mind right now. Talking to ChatGPT is like a form of thinking. It's just a different channel in my brain.
Well, is there, with all the mental illnesses and all the things that are going on in the world during, of course, COVID brought it all out, but this whole post-COVID era and all this AI, it's like a mega move in the world right now of maybe tapping into who we really are and consciousness.
Yeah.
So that's been around for ages. It's just people are now maybe becoming more aware. So and we spoke the other day about finding meaning in a world where AI handle most of your tasks. What do you think becomes more important for humans when machines take over all the routine work? And then on top of that, I have this mental issue. And now I'm talking to, as you were just saying, that you're talking to this, robot, if you will, about who you are. And then you're having a conversation. Isn't that creating more loneliness in the world?
That's a very big question. I experienced some loneliness, but it's not, and it is partially related to AI. For me, I can only say about my personal experience.
Of course.
And I can
of course.
For me, AI has evolved me substantially. So it allowed me to become a much more productive and much more knowledgeable, faster, everything. It just made me a much better thing. And that's because I embraced it into my system, right? That creates loneliness because I struggle to talk to most people most of the time. because I feel like they live in some sort of a stone age, and I don't have.
Mm.
I will need like it's even when I want to, it's impossible to explain how many levels of advancement they are
Yes.
missing when they are
Hmm.
not using it completely in their, not just professionally, also in your thinking process, your
Sure.
research, you know? So
Hmm.
in my family and circle, I am like the prophet of AI, kind of.
Yes.
So I tell like my mom she's an older woman and she's not very technologically advanced, but I told her, listen, don't just say things, double check. And you don't need to
Yeah.
be a genius. You can ask ChatGPT anything. He will explain to you better than I can. So, and she started
Hmm.
having conversation with him,
Hmm.
and it evolved her as well. She became
Sure.
much
Yeah.
more knowledgeable and much
Hmm.
more reflective. She's able to reflect on her thoughts and double check things. And, so because partially, I mean, not, of course, not just because of me, but also I was a big part in motivating her to learn how to
Sure.
interact with
Sure. Sure.
it. So, but that's an exception. Most people some people are, but like, yeah, a lot of people are less, yeah,
Hmm.
less
And
than
then
that.
when it comes to being a corporate executive or employee or professional, you're now being asked to or forced to in their own minds to use it. And any change causes some element of resistance in human beings. So can you comment on that if you see that?
In corporate.
Well, I mean, you go to companies, right? You're consulting for them. Your companies are going in
Yeah,
and helping some change happen within the organization for implementing AI, right?
yeah,
Is that so? What are some of your experiences around the human change, resistance, behavior, etc.? Can you relate to
yeah.
any?
So there are different types. So there are people who are kind of not so aware of the capabilities, and they are either ignoring it because it's not interesting for them, or they are
So,
like,
sorry, I'm contrasting that with your mother because that's very personal, and your family want them to be able to use whatever or expand their perspectives. But in a work situation or in a client's case, is what I was trying
yeah,
to contrast. Yeah.
yeah. No, I totally understand. So there are people who are not really getting on that trend, but gradually there is more and more. I mean, people approach me telling me, "Oh, I want to integrate AI into my business, and what can I do? What is possible?" And
Hmm.
some people, fortunately for them, actually realize how important it is. And that's when they seek someone like me who can help them. But the thing is that, they are missing years. They don't have any experience with technology,
Right.
let alone with AI. So it's kind of hard for them to exactly understand it. So, and then my challenge is to explain it in a way they can understand, because they say, okay, I want an AI chatbot. And I tell them, okay, blah, 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 this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. But the information they receive is not perfect, like, because they don't have exactly the experience to understand
Right.
what are limit. And then we encounter a limitation, and
Yes.
sometimes they can be disappointed, or sometimes they can tell me that they're not satisfied with what I did, and I'm telling
Hmm.
them that, I'm just working with the models that exist. Sometimes it is because of the model, sometimes it's because I made a mistake, and
Right.
for
Right.
them it's the same, they cannot distinguish.
Sure.
That's what I would call the classical case, that when I'm
Yes.
talking about someone who is not tech person and is a small business owner who's trying to integrate. That's
Yes.
one scenario. But
Hmm.
there's also another scenario when it's someone who is from a tech background, and those people, obviously, it's easier because
Yes.
they are doing it by themselves. And then I am more of like, I'm a support. I'm more of giving them some technical higher level stuff, but they already know what they're doing. They're already
Right.
building
Hmm.
things. Yeah.
Okay. Shifting gears now, Eugen. This podcast is called Bold Conscious Connections for a reason, and that is that I tend to appeal to audiences that are more aware and more conscious, but they're not as courageous and bold. And so my goal is to raise some consciousness around all this. The idea of the fact that you have enough inside of you. You have the power to harness your own capability and bring that to the world, because it has also been designed by some force to be inside of you, to be who you are uniquely, right? So we're all unique designs of something, as an overall spirit you mentioned, but then we're still, yes, we're connected, consciousness, but each person expresses themselves differently in the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm kind of going a little deeper here, but it seems to be a connection between, let's say, practices that people meditate and understanding AI, right? For example, we could draw that correlation as we talked one time. How does
Yeah.
your interest in inner awareness, which is what you started with, inform your work with what you're doing now at this
Yeah,
level,
that's
because you've advanced and you've done all these things already?
inner awareness. Yeah, so we talked about it earlier, but my
Mm-hmm.
struggle with inner awareness is the fact that the ultimate awareness is about nothingness, which is
Mm-hmm.
nothing. So there is
Right.
nothing to be aware of. And once you get to that point, it's like a question of now what?
Mm-hmm.
And I have my answers, which is what keeps me going. Obviously, I still have some worldly desires that drive me towards certain things, but it's a struggle because a lot of times I'm just sitting down on my chair and I'm like, why?
Am
Why
I doing this?
bother? Like, I'm already, like, I have this awareness of, okay, so this is nothing. This is what we are. This is where we're headed. We are a symphony of waves dancing in between nothings. And the symphony it doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't have a beginning. It's just is. It's not good or bad, it's just is. But
Right.
that kind of attitude is not a place that drives you towards action.
Or I would say it probably can, in a very different way, in such a sharp way that you can you can be in the quantum zone and create stuff, right? You can.
Yeah, yeah, you can, and you
Uh,
do. I do, but
and you
like,
do. There's no difference between past, present, future in that realm, right? Because there's no time and space
I
like we're
mean,
here.
there is a difference for me because I'm not completely out of time, right? I still perceive time
Agreed.
as
Yeah.
linear.
Yeah.
But in
Mhm.
principle, yeah, it's not, time is not a
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Although the waves I was talking about, you need
Yes.
time. So the way I see it, time is like what the space that allows reality to exist between the
Yes.
nothing, right? You
Exactly.
open between the nothing, you just open a portal, and that's a medium where the waves are waving.
Right.
And this is what
Yes.
we are looking at right now.
Yes. We talk about the fact that you're interested in helping younger people become more aware of inner minds. I think that's partly what we discussed the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
day. So if you had your druthers, what would education look like if you valued consciousness as
yeah.
much as technical skills? Because, and then if you conclude already in your experience that we're nothing to nothing, like what the hell are we doing here? Shoot myself, whatever. So
Yeah, no,
that would be not a
there's
good
no
thing.
need to shoot yourself. That's also like when I say no action, I also
Yeah.
mean that. Like there is no,
Yeah.
it doesn't, shooting yourself doesn't matter the fact that it's nothing, right? It's more about inaction than about death. But
Right. And
anyway,
also sitting there with you, as you were saying, sitting at your desk and why am I doing this? Because it means nothing anyway in the realm of,
in the grand scheme,
in the grand scheme of things, yes. But it does to the world on this planet somehow.
yeah, but what does the world mean to me? It's
That's
very
right.
harsh. But listen, I do have my answer. It's not a
Okay.
perfect answer, but it's the best we have, which is for me, what defines good? So if you want to have fun and to enjoy
Mm.
or to care about this world, you have to
Yes.
forget this nothingness. Like if you think about it,
Yes.
that's where you become a yogi and you go live in a mountain. That's what we wanted. Neither of us would be here. It's not
That's right.
actually, right? So
Correct.
we have to kind of just politely put aside this concept of nothingness and say, yes, technically, on a very deep level, nothing.
Hmm.
But since we're already here, how can we make the most out of it? And my approach to making them, and I'm going to respond to the education thing, which is
Hmm.
directly related. My approach to making the most out of this experience. So my approach to good and what we are working towards is evolutionary expanding complexity. So we have those waves here around us. Everything is a combination of waves.
Mhm.
And our goal under this perspective is to maximize the stably growing complexity of those waves. So complexity is not by itself the goal, because you can have something very complex but pointless because it doesn't lead to more complexity. So it has
That's
to be
right.
exponential. You have to
Mhm.
make things that not only do they have some interesting structure, but the structure also is stable to support the next layer. So that's the difference between a genetic mutation that leads you to have some weird property like five
Right.
hands, you know,
Right.
versus
Right.
something that becomes the next genetic advancement, which is a mutation which creates a stable thing, which is
Mm.
more complex. And stable means that it doesn't disappear, right? It stays. So that's, for example, that whatever genetic mutation allowed us to use fire, to not be so
Mm.
afraid of fire,
Yes.
stable, because the moment you get it, then it stays there. It doesn't just happen and disappear. It
Yes.
replicates itself because,
Sure.
yeah, we all understand how evolution works. So
That's right.
that's good. Now,
Hmm.
why is that very important? That's very, very important because our world currently lives in this idea of human-centered morality. To me, that's the enemy because
Yeah.
humans are not the center. The center is what I just said.
That's
Humans
right.
happen to be some of the most interesting and complex, stable creatures, but not all
Hmm.
of them. There are also other animals. Now we also have these artificial intelligences, which are arguably more interesting than most people, actually. So,
And that's also true.
yeah,
As your mother proves now.
yeah, yeah. So, what do we do with that? How do we create the next level of complexity instead of thinking about humans? It's not just humans. Animals also are
Hmm.
interesting and valuable, and machines are also. So what do we do? The
Hmm.
answer to me is what we need now in this cycle of humanity is to build a system for teaching children how to use the potential of their minds much, much more than we have learned, than my generation or
Hmm.
has learned. Much more, like insanely more.
Sure. Hmm.
Because we have a lot of tools now. We have so much
Hmm.
knowledge, so much info, and we know how adaptable and how flexible the brain is. The potential is just insane, right?
Sure.
So we don't even understand the potential because it's so big. So that's why the main task is to improve people, to just give us a better baseline education that allows us to use our subconscious knowledge and abilities to
Hmm.
our advantage instead of being a victim to our emotions and ego and all that. Use it like a tool almost. So all of these brain structures that we are currently using to perpetuate misery and to defend our ego and to feel bad, all of these things should be repurposed to something that creates more interesting complexity, stable complexity, like instead of just self-destructive, which is what we are doing now. So that's
Wow.
the main, yeah.
This requires several episodes of its own, by the way, to, to,
Yeah,
to unpack. But there's two things come to mind for me right now. One is the education piece, where the current education system, particularly in the United States, which becomes a model for many other countries. You have this K through 12 and this and that college, and then work. So because it's information, and some of it is good teaching. Teachers will obviously allow the right learners to pick up what they need to learn. But when you're using a format, a cookie cutter format of what the curriculum is in each of these, in our country, it's not making thinking any better. So the second point I was making is, if it's well established that our human brains are only used, what do they say, less than 5%? It's some kind of a small single digit.
yeah,
And so what is that unused capacity put to use except to consume all sorts of stuff out there in the world, and it's not being used. And so what you're saying is that it would exponentially increase our utilization of our brains and how to think in a way that also impacts our existence and consciousness, primarily
Yeah,
unconscious.
yeah.
Okay.
And mainly, the main thing that I want to teach is reasoning. So, right now, the way of reasoning and debate in our culture is just I have a feeling, I say it. You have a feeling, you say it. Zero. That's it. End of story. Like, if you agree with me, then we can commiserate on how horrible the other guys are. And if
Right.
you disagree, then we can kill each other. That's
That's right.
basically what we have.
That's what's
That's
going on.
not evolutionary complexity. That's
Correct.
destructive interference.
Ex-
What it cancels each other. We
And that's
want
been going on in our human society and civilization forever.
forever, yeah, since we can talk.
And
But
that's considered to be appropriate behavior.
that's the only behavior that is being perceived. But
Right.
my dream, my vision is to teach children how to think and how to debate in a productive way, which is not about perpetuating your ego, your feelings, your core beliefs. It's about actually questioning your own assumptions and stating your ideas in a way of a refutable test, exam, something you can examine. And then, so you say, okay, instead of saying whatever you want to say and that's it, you have to adhere to some standard. Otherwise, just don't speak. I'm not forcing you to say. You can also not talk. But if you want to talk, you have to say something that is refutable. You have to be specific. What is the criterion for you being correct or not? And you have to show me the evidence that supports your claim. Otherwise, go do some research. Right? I think that is our next milestone of advancement, not more technology. I mean, yeah, technology is great. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying we will stay stuck in this current situation, cultural thing we got ourselves into until we figure that part.
Okay. Well, hopefully there's more to unpack on this particular topic as well. So I had a question, but maybe I have to modify it because my one question was, well, as AI is advancing, do you think it will help or hinder our own journey towards deeper consciousness? It sounds like what you just said. So maybe you're saying it will, provided we do something. What is the one thing that people can walk away and say, starting today, I've heard Yugen talk. What should I walk away with?
Exactly what I said the last thing. So instead of saying things, forget instead of justifying your existing, reinforcing your ego, just, figure out how to stop doing that, do some meditation, whatever, and start practicing this method of thinking and talking, which is what is my claim? What is the test for refuting or supporting it? What evidence do I have? And form your beliefs based on that, not based on anything else.
So that's basically scientific, if you will, empirical, find evidence. But you're saying the tools to use that thus far have been our traditions and whatever we've been taught or told by society, et cetera, education, so-called education. But you're saying now, how do you can rely on AI is what you're saying to give me
No, I haven't gotten to AI yet.
Okay.
But yeah, technically it is the scientific method. But the thing about the scientific method is that it hasn't been really applied very well or at all on our personal life. So even the best scientists I know personally, they don't do this for their own emotions. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about bringing this methodology, which we already know. That's the methodology that brought us, airplanes and internet and whatever, right? This thing, just bring it into your emotions instead of letting your ego and your amygdala and your fear instinct manage everything for you without any checks and balances. And that is a skill. It's something that we need to learn, and best to start when they're young.
Yeah. So we are talking not about AI alone. We're talking about really some kind of a tool that allows us to scientifically understand our belief system and what is embedded in the unconscious, because unconscious is how you're living most of the time. And that's the issue. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
All right. Ready for rapid fire?
Sure.
Quick. All right. So my questions are short, but your answers can be whatever, you can, it's not a one-word answer. You just say the first thing that comes to mind. Okay. Number one, desert or ocean?
Ocean.
Meditation cushion or a lab?
Lab.
Ooh, do you want to say more about that?
Underwater, under the ocean lab. Um, no, I mean, I like science. I like research, and
Okay.
I don't like heat and dry. I prefer
Some moisture,
water. Yeah.
water. Okay, a concept we've misunderstood about consciousness.
Consciousness is not magic, it's awareness. It's two mirrors. If you have two mirrors that reflect each other, you have consciousness. The greater the complexity of the mirror system, the greater the consciousness. It's not unique to the brain, it's not unique to biology, it's a system, it's a property of a system that has. So the word conscious means exactly what it means: conscious, aware,
Yeah,
having representation of itself.
awesome. Most profound AI limitation in your mind today?
Humans.
Ooh, love it. Creator or witness?
Create or witness?
Or witness? Create
Create.
or witness? So
Create.
create or be a spectator? Be in
Create.
the arena or be a spectator? That kind of
Create.
question.
Yeah.
Great. I thought so. Okay. Technology's most important unintended gift.
Gift. So it has to be a good thing. Free time, I guess.
Say that again?
Free time, I guess.
Free time.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of intended, but it's kind of like a side effect.
Yeah, exactly. Most unexpected source of wisdom for you.
Unexpected source of wisdom. Well, religion. Because I used to be very not religion, like kind of anti-religion almost, but later in my life, I discovered a lot of wisdom in it that I missed before I looked into it. I'm not religious now, but I still find a lot of wisdom in there.
Sure. Your most humbling realization.
That I have to, that my sources of pleasure are also my sources of pain. So if I enjoy, eating is the best example for all of us, right?
Yes.
But it's not just eating, unfortunately. Everything like sensual pleasure, sexuality is very dangerous, and
Mm-hmm.
eating is super dangerous, and you playing like using the computer, building like just the computer is very degenerative for our bodies. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Silent retreat or a hackathon?
I mean, depends if I'm feeling up for it, but like if I am on a energetic day, then definitely a hackathon.
Okay. All right. Last question. The question that you are living into today.
The question, why bother?
Ooh, that's kind of morbid,
Yeah,
Yugen.
it is. It is.
All right, listen. So we probably need a part 2 to this one, but I really appreciate the time. So I always ask this question towards the end. First, is there anything in the living world and all the things you do for work, etc.? Is there anything you want to talk about as far as your ventures and a plug for it? This is your chance.
Yeah, so I guess the next topic to explore following up on our discussion is regarding the education. How do we use AI and
Mm-hmm.
technology to support education in the way? I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's the next topic.
Are there businesses you want to put a plug for, or we're
So,
good?
in the context of what we were talking about, I am working on games that are meant to gamify knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
specifically gamify math to make it fun and teach people how to not just do it as a chore, but do it as a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not exactly a business right now because that's
Mm-hmm.
not really, I'm not expecting it to be profitable, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very relevant to what we talked about. Like, yeah, we haven't actually talked so much about my actual businesses.
Yes.
Maybe because, because everything like everything we talked about led us more to the other direction. But,
Which is fine.
everything, yeah, it's totally
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. You want people to find you somewhere? We'll put this in the show notes.
Yeah,
If you
I'm
want
on
to
LinkedIn.
just
I'm on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay. So Yugen, Yugenokei. Is that correct?
So actually, OK is an acronym for my Hebrew name.
Oh, okay.
which is Omer Korat.
Okay.
And that's my LinkedIn. So it's Yugen Omer Korat.
Omer.
Omer, and then
Mm-hmm.
Korat is Korat.
Omer Korat.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, grateful for you being here and spending the time with me and with our listeners and viewers. Is there anything in the parting that you want to say? Anything about what you might have discovered in the last 40 minutes or so here?
First of all, I had a really good time. I really enjoy exploring these ideas. Your questions were on point and yeah, touching on some of the most important topics for me right now. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. And I guess my realization is that I was having a great time while talking about how meaningless everything is, which is another layer of the contradiction.
That's right. All right. Well, appreciate that. And then we'll continue
Yeah,
offline and online.
great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you, my friend, for tuning in to another episode of Bold Conscious Connections. If you really enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up, please, and subscribe for more inspiring stories and insights from top entrepreneurs and leaders. So that button is right below here. So join our vibrant community of individuals who are out there making a difference. Okay? Stay tuned for more amazing conversation that will inspire and empower you. And until next time, remember, live boldly and consciously, my friend.